Okay, so let's get started. So tonight we have an episode of Let's Light. What the series has been me taking you guys through step by step of lighting up a character, an animated character from start to finish in a scene. The animated character was done by Remus Lowe, and we're just going through it step by step. So this is episode 3. Episode 1, we just did some quick test lighting. Episode 2, we found some reference and we started to match that reference. In this episode, I look to take you guys through the process of just kind of look deving it a little bit. So we did some passes in the render, and now what we're going to be doing is taking that first render pass, like again, just setting up the lights, not dialing them in too specifically, but taking them into Nuke and just twisting and pulling and tweaking values to get a structure of a shot the way that we like it. So this is all just like planning and phasing. So each one of these episodes is about a half hour long. So as of right now, we would be about an hour into my workflow. But before we get started, I was kind of rambling about this for a second right before we got started. But in lieu of what's going on in the world right now, Jasmine and I wanted to make a special note, and we wanted to do something good for the underrepresented minorities in our industry. So we're doing a couple things. Number one, and I posted the link in Zoom and in the comments on Facebook. We are making one of our dark skin characters assets totally free for you to download and practice lighting dark skin characters. Because for so long in film, television, animation, dark skin characters have been lit in a way that isn't best for their skin tones. So as you guys know from this, I am lighting a dark skin character here so you can see how a different way of approaching it. But we want to give you guys the opportunity to practice, and we also want to raise some money for a good cause. So what we're doing is the download, like I said, totally free, but based on the number of downloads that we get, Jasmine and I are going to be donating to a great cause called Black Girls Code. You can find out more about that through, I think there's a link on the webpage. If not, you can just Google Black Girls Code. A great organization for getting, again, young women of color into our industry and into technology as a whole. So enough about that. But like I said, check out the link, download the asset. Very, very cool stuff. And just let us know if you have any questions about that. But without much further ado, you guys know the drill. I will be checking. Yes, it's our pleasure, Ryan. Ryan says, thanks. That's a great organization. Awesome organization. Thank you for doing that. Yes, we are. Both Jasmine and I had in our stories, we had opportunities to be inspired before we got into this industry. And one of the reasons why we do the Academy of Animated Art is we hope to be a little bit of an inspiration for somebody else. And this organization is doing this too for younger audience, and we just think it's incredible and we want to be supportive. So enough of that. Let's get into lighting a little bit. Or in this case, today we've got compositing. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. And you guys know the drill. If you have questions, just pop them into either the chat window on Zoom or the comment section of Facebook. So I'm going to be focusing in on my screen, so I won't see all of them right away probably, but I will circle back towards the end to answer them up. So as you all know, we've got this animated scene. This character, he rotates, delivers a dramatic line. And we've done some lighting already. If you want to check our progress, check videos 1 and 2 on our YouTube channel. But now what we're going to do is I've gone ahead and rendered out a couple of frames because, again, as you can see from the animation, the character kind of is in 2 poses. And so I've just rendered out, it's basically first frame, last frame. And we're just going to start, what I want to do is take this frame and start playing around with it and seeing what we can do with the image to make it, because again, this was kind of our reference to kind of get it more towards that area. Because there's some things that are working, other things that definitely aren't. And it's just a matter of like, I didn't want to dive too far into the render and into doing all that without getting a better formative feeling of what exactly it is I want to do. So this is, again, literally how I light things. I play around with it, find some reference, then I bring it into the comp and I start goofing around with some things. Let me go ahead and hide my video so that you can see the whole screen. Okay, so we've got this image, last frame of the shot. Let's go inside this first one out of the way. So just so you can see, we've got a few things going on that I'm going to be playing with. Number one is we created crypto mats out of Arnold So I'll be able to utilize different sections of the image to do some color corrections. The other thing is we rendered out AOVs for this. So we're able to grab just like the diffuse values, just the subsurface values, just the specular values. So we can really kind of play with some things. Now, once I do this for real, I will definitely render out the background separately from the character, and probably the character with the table, just because they're all, just because he's like coming in contact with it. But just so you guys know, but like for this initial mockup, I just rendered everything into one pass. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first thing I want to do is really kind of start to dial in his skin tone. So since that's one of the things that we really want to focus in on. So one of the things is that he is looking a little bit, his overall like lifted diffuse value isn't quite where we want it to be. We want it to be a little bit darker and really kind of push some of these specular values. So what I'm going to do first off is I'm just going to shuffle out. Actually, let's just go ahead and cryptomatic, because again, like I'm not going to get too particular into his in like breaking out every, because once like you start breaking out his subsurface versus his diffuse, you're gonna have to start layering all that stuff back together. Oops, didn't mean to grab that, so we just grab the remover. Now we've got a skin tone. Now we're gonna go ahead and grade this back in using the crypto mat as the alpha. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and start toning this down. And we're just looking at the diffuse value. So I'm kind of looking in this region here. Probably be warmed up a little bit too, more towards the reds. Yeah, kind of somewhere in there. A little bit darker. So now that we've reduced this base value overall, we can, what I want to do next, and take out some of the saturation there. There we go. What we can do now is start to play with the specular value. So again, we've got this crypto mat. I'm going to go ahead and shuffle out the specular on him. And I just do a combination thing. So one, I shuffle out all the specularity in the shot, and then I merge this inside of the crypto mat that I've already created. And now we've got only the specularity isolated to a skin tone. And from there, we can just merge that back over the top and plus it back in. Again, not final compositing techniques at all. We're only looking for just overall look dev type stuff. So from here, I can start to dial in the value. And also if we want to add a little bit of color to this. So we were seeing some kind of cooler tones in the reference. So maybe something like that. It's a little bit too cool and a little bit too bright overall. Take that down, take down the saturation. We'll probably want to soften that a little bit more too. So one way to do that would just be to add a little glow to it. Take down the brightness on this. Go ahead and a little bigger. And that, yeah, and now we've got a little bit more. So you can see from the base level to where we have here. Now this isn't going to be the final way that we do this, but again, this is going to allow us to go back into the Maya file and adjust the shader and adjust the lights to kind of get us in a better spot. So one of the things I was looking at the reference that I really like is how everything in the reference has a lot of warm tones. Like his shirt's kind of a warm tone, the background's very warm, the outside has a little bit of warmth to it. And the only thing that's kind of even hinting towards cool is kind of the specular highlights on him. And one of the things about this is his blue shirt's really standing out to me. So I'm wondering if there isn't a better color to create for his shirt. So I'm gonna go ahead and look at this here. Select the shirt value, go ahead and create a grade node. You can also use like a hue correct if you want to just shuffle that around a little bit. And then I'm just going to go ahead and just start shifting this around to like something a little bit warmer. Even neutralizing it down just a little bit. Let's go ahead and do a hue shift too. See if this works. Saturation, hue rotation, there we go. Something a little bit, not really around there, maybe a little bit more towards the reds, somewhere in there, just to kind of keep all of this value a little bit on the warm side. And I'm seeing too, by the way, as I darken his diffuse, that we're going to need to increase the light on the key side of his face. So let's just simulate that up a little bit too. So let's just do this, grab this roto, merge that inside of the Scriptomat. And again, none of this is final. This is like the ugliest comp I've ever created, and it's just brand new. So like something like that where I've just got just that area. Pulling this in. And just lift this up just a little bit more. We'll kind of soften the edge of this. Just to kind of, again, just kind of look depping it up just a little bit. Maybe not that bright. Just to create a little bit more shaping in him there. There we go. See if anyone has any questions here before I continue. Nothing here on Zoom. Double check. Oh, hey, Clever, how's it going? And like I said, if you guys, hopefully you guys find this useful. This is a very beneficial part of my process that I don't really get an opportunity to talk about too much, but it's just the way that I kind of process things a little bit. So again, my first thought was to really look in at the character. I also want, let's take a look. So the other thing that's standing out to me is that this background is a little bit monotone, right? And like the cabinets are the same color as the walls, is the same color as like a bunch of this other stuff. And then like some of these elements are just kind of white and a little bland. So, and I know by looking at this that having like all of these darker elements is a nice touch. Maybe I don't want to go quite that dark so I can get his skin tone, his darker skin tones to pop out. But let's take a look at the background a little bit. Let's go ahead and like try and darken that down. Let's see where that gets us. Just going to take, let's do the wall first, and then we will take a look at the cabinetry. Because the other thing I'm noticing is that there's a huge gap in this cabinet that's going to be a little janky. The good thing is it's not animated at all, so I can go ahead and scale that up in the Maya file to make that adjustment there. But what we can do, let's go ahead and start. Like if we darken up this wall, keep it towards the warm side. Yeah, something like this would be nice, and then we can adjust the cabinets as well. And actually, I mean, now that the wall's a little bit darker, the cabinets don't really need to shift that much, just because they are now like standing out as being a little bit different. But let's just go ahead and play around with it, see what we get. Maybe just neutralizing them just a little bit more. I don't think they need to be that much darker. But something along this line. But so now that we're kind of darkening everything, one of the things that I'm really missing, and this is one of the bigger elements of this original, is just like the amount of glow and the amount of brightness coming through back here. So let's go ahead and bring that in. So that'll really, because like now everything's just kind of looking dark back here. But now let's just simulate, because I know that we're going to want to bring in, you know, obviously want to make a render pass where we bring in some nice volumetric glow. But for right now, I'm just gonna draw like a really crude roto shape around him and just see what this gets us. Take this back in here. Thanks. And now with this, I can take this roto, I can draw a constant, not draw a constant, but create a constant, which is just a color. From this, I can grab like just a sample of this kind of like yellowy bright light back over here. Put this inside of this. And now we can kind of start to see a little bit of a super, once again, super duper janky version of this. And we'll go ahead and just plus it over top. Now this looks just terrible, right? So let's go ahead and take this down. And we definitely know that we don't want it over the character. So what we can do is just grab that crypto map from before, where we grab the character. Actually, let's make another one, because we're going to want the character and the table here. Let's grab him. This and his eyes. Okay. Now we've got him selected. And I selected him just because it's easier than selecting all the background. But for now, grab this. And like, again, because this is the scatter light, we'll go ahead and just tone him down. So now it's all kind of sitting back behind him there. And this looks janky, so let's go ahead and extend this. Now that we have it isolated out of that table, we can just extend that down here. So now it feels a little bit more like it's shining in through the room. We'll go ahead and soften this a little bit more too with a little blur. All right, cool. So now we've got this light coming in, and this light wash behind him is going to really help separate him out from the background. And again, just to compare it to where we are with the original, here's where we started. Here's where we're kind of mocking it up to now. And one of the things about the reference to, this one, lost it, this one, we can start to see the silhouette of the outside. We'll add that later because I will render the windows out separately, and I'll dial that in later. For now, I'm not going to worry too much about that. I guess the only thing I could do to help really settle us in, because that kind of super yellow isn't the best over here. So we'll just go ahead and let's take down the saturation. We'll see what that looks like. So now it's just more like blown out white. And then we can also, it's kind of weird that there's like this real hard edge around him there. We can soften this, the cutout of the light glow around him a little bit, just to kind of get that feeling in there. Actually, I don't like that. Let's do it this way. Let's just add a little glow here at the end. We'll separate that out. Actually, I don't think we can. We'll do it this way. We'll do it here. And we'll just pull the bright values. I'm going to the alpha. Pull these bright values. Merge this back inside of that. So now we're getting just that, those bright areas, will glow those up, and we can screen that back over the top, or plus it, because so now we've got a little bit more glow on that background there. We can really play around with this if we want. It needs to be bigger. I guess something like that. Let's see. Again, all very rough stuff, just kind of dialing in this look. I really lost the image there. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay. All right, so now this is starting to feel pretty good. Now, the one thing about this, and again, I pulled in these other images too, because I might want to pull in some of these as well. This one's kind of nice as he's looking out the window. His face is getting a little bit brighter. This one too, his face is a little bit brighter on this side, so I might be able to push that a little bit more. But let's take a look here at the end and see if there's not more that we can do. Because like one of the things about it is that I always do this at the end too, where I kind of just like take a look at the overall exposure and any of the black points or the contrast levels, the saturation levels, things like that, and just kind of play around with it. So let's see if we can't just expose this up a little bit and see what we get. So skin tone now is falling a little bit more. It's too bright. Let's take this down. So that was he's it's still bright there. Maybe something a little bit more like this, except for we want to add a little more contrast into. Let's see what we have here. Going back into his skin, just adding a little bit more into the darker values. And we want to take some of the saturation out of that. Just some of the red values. Oh, can't type. You correct. Take some of these reds down just a little. Definitely down more. Oof. Yeah, I don't like that at all. Don't like that at all. Gonna take this back up. See if we can find another way of doing that. It's just this exposure is too much. Let's grab grade node here. Opportunity, yeah, it's like something like this would be nicer. He's feeling a little bit more saturated, but we can pull that back. But I like what some of this is given to us here. Yeah, his skin tone's feeling too saturated. Let's take a look at the end here. All right, now we'll take down, instead of taking out the reds, we'll take down some of the saturation. Now that looks a little bit better. Something more along this line. But now, like what we're seeing here on this side is looking a little grayed out, so I want to brighten that up. And then we'd want to tighten up those spec kits a little bit more because they have gotten a little soft now that we've added all that glowiness into it. If I just flip this up above. More along that lines. Yeah, we're still seeing too much saturation on his screen right side, but this is feeling a little bit better. And then what I would really want to do is, I'll go ahead and do it now, is add some dark values into this table, into the foreground. Because if you look at this reference, that's one of the things that's really nice is these foreground elements that are darker are really helping it pop forward. So I would just kind of bring something in here. And then go ahead and darken back here as well. Oh. All right, so now I'm going to just take that shape, blur it up by a bunch, 200, invert it. So we're getting what's outside of that circle instead of what's inside of that circle. And then we're just going to go ahead and grade it. Just grade node. And just grade it down just a little bit just to get some more dark values in this table. We can possibly squeeze this in a little bit more just to kind of play around with it a little bit. allow that to come down here, but then also get some darkness kind of back over here. Maybe a little bit down there too. Why not? Just wrap around his arm. So yeah, so now it's not perfect, but this feels a lot more what I'm trying to go for versus what we had here at the top, right? So now what I can do, or what I'm going to do next week, is I can take this image and begin to, now I know that like I can adjust some of these shaders down. I want to adjust the shirt value. I want to adjust the wall values, like really kind of start to dial in some of these things, and then really get a better understanding of the specular highlights coming around in there, and really kind of hit up to some of these reference points that we're seeing here. Like this is some really nice specularity in there. And just really getting a better understanding of how this is going to fit into this space. But I think this is looking well. I'll leave it here as is, and what I would do at this point is just go ahead and write this out. And write this to like my reference folder. Oh, for now, I'll just write it out to the desktop and I'll move it later. And just say Remus low animation work in progress look dev. We'll just make it a JPEG for now. It doesn't need to be super high res or anything. And then we'll just write that out. And now when we come back next week, I will take this image back into Maya and start lighting based on this. So now we have a really good understanding. And I'll save this new file out so we have a better understanding. Hop over into the window here and see if we have any questions. Go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Yeah, so hopefully you guys found that beneficial. Like I said, if you have questions, make sure you kind of fill them in here. Fill them in on the screen. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you check out the YouTube comments. And then we will go from there. Oh, Matt, Sam, you raised your hand. All right, misclick. Haha, no problem at all. Let's see. Oh, wait. Oh, there are questions down here. I am so sorry. I was missing these. Tyler asks, how would this process differ in an animated scene as opposed to a single image? So this is an animated scene, so I do it the exact same way. So the way that I look at animated scenes is that let's see, the way that I look at animated scenes is, the way that I do that is I will look at them as a series early on, as a series of hero elements. So I find the point where the character is in a hero pose. So usually when you animate something, it's like they start off blocking, like they're in this pose, and then they're in this pose, and then they're in this pose, right? Or whatever. They look this way, then this way, then this way. And so what I do is in my lighting, as I find those hero poses and I identify those first, and I start working with those. So my realistic way of working is to start lighting based on those hero poses. Then once I get those in place, then I let a low res test of it run for the entire frame range, or if it's a long shot, like this is kind of a long shot, so I'll probably do it on every 4th frame. And then I will see how it all plays out in motion, and then I'll make my adjustments from there. So the process for me is exactly the same. I do it exactly the same way. Ryan asked, quick question. So going for the HDR look, do you think it's better to blow out the colors and comp after you light the image so you don't lose information? No, I think that, I mean, so the EXR is nice because I like pushing the values a little bit more in the comp and then deal with the blurs and the glows in Nuke. And that's because if I do the extra brightening in the render, you'll get the secondary effects. So if like light screaming in and hitting this desktop and hitting it like so bright, the renderer will give me, as part of the calculation for free, the additional bounces around the room, right? Like it'll give me the bounces up onto the wall, give me the bounces up onto my face, the bounces onto the surrounding objects. And then in the comp, because it's an EXR file, you have data in that bright point. You have variation in value, so you can just pull that down a little bit. Or if you want, you can really use that to drive the glow. Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to raise my hand. No problem at all, Sam. You guys are great. Juan Lopez asked, when do you attack the eye lighting in the process? Towards the end. That's generally like the last. It's kind of falls into the detail stuff that I I don't worry about it. So there's some things that I definitely have talked about, like because like the eyes of this character aren't right yet. Like I got to go in there and adjust the materials, but none of that matters until I get the block lighting right, until I get the structure of it. I mean, I know that yeah, it's usually one of the last things that I deal with. It's kind of like render noise at that point, because it's although it's a very important element of the scene, it's a very small element. So I usually work big to small. But that's a really good question, and it's a good question overall, because you don't want to get into the detail stuff while you still have large scale things to solve. So yeah, I think that's it for today. If you all have any other questions, please feel free to let me know. I am happy to assist. Again, check out the link in the comments down below. We're trying to support a great cause here. The more downloads you get of this asset, the more money that we're able to give to this great cause. So we're excited to see. We're excited to see a download. Every time there's a download, I get an email, and my email has been blowing up today since Jasmine sent out these email this morning. It makes us very, very, very happy to help. So for the rest of the night, have a good night, everybody. Happy lighting. Remember, come back on Wednesday. Wednesday, we're doing another roundtable. Sam, Juan, I want you guys there. We can sit down. We can talk through some lighting stuff. I'll send out the topic earlier in the day on Wednesday, but if you guys are available, I'd love to be able to meet you face-to-face or Zoom face-to-face, whatever that means. And but I'd love to have a little conversation with you guys. So until then, happy lighting, everybody.